Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another uh, podcast of the Sports Crib. This is actually our first podcast for the month of March as we get ready to go into March Madness. So it's kind of appropriate that we will be talking to Mr. Jefrey Fann uh, a little later in the show, and we will be talking college basketball, of course, talking ACC, talking about maybe this is one of the years where we'll have one of the closest tournaments ever. We'll see. I see that. Well, before we let's get our little commercial stuff out of the way. You can see down in the left-hand corner there. This is I am James E. King 3. You can find me on Facebook and various social media under that title. Excuse me. You can also find me on Twitter under West Coast Steeler Fan and the Sports Crib. And on YouTube, you can see our Cash App there, JE King 3. You can subscribe and donate to our channel. Um, Also, before going on, thoughts and prayers are with our brother Demetrius, and we send all our thoughts and prayers, and as he is hopefully guided through this very tumultuous time in his life. Uh, so we have Reggie Johnson here already. Reggie from Atlanta. Reggie, how you doing this evening?
Very happy to be on, my friend. Another Wednesday, another time to talk some sports. Always glad to be here.
Oh man, so many things I have to cram into when I get you. I know I only have you here for like an hour, so I got to cram some things in uh, because uh, even though we're going into the NBA finals and March Madness, there are still a lot of questions in the NFL.
Yeah.
And how are you riding with the Falcons, man? What's going on?
Um, so far so good, I guess. It's hard really to form any solid judgment before you get to the draft, right? So when you're a bad team like Atlanta is, then you look forward to the draft. The draft becomes your Super Bowl. Now this is what we look forward to. And then we find once you find out where your spot is, which is for us, it's eighth. Then you start trying to figure out what are we gonna do with this spot? Do we try to trade back? Do we try to get more pieces? All that stuff. So you wait for a lot of smoke to clear. The only thing that's happened up to this point is Mariota leaving, which everybody knew was going to happen anyway. He kind of just left the team anyway. Um, so none of that's really a big surprise. And I think that most of the excitement is going to come once we know what's going on with the eighth pick. The Lamar Jackson, I'm hearing a lot of that, but I won't believe that until it actually something solidifies with that situation. But that's what the talk's been down here so far.
And what's with Ritter? Ryder? Is it Ritter?
I think Ritter. I think we should give the kid a shot. Me personally, the Lamar Jackson situation is intriguing because he's an intriguing player, but I don't think that any team that has more pieces than it needs in one, like the Falcons, aren't one piece away, in my opinion. Doesn't really have any business paying a quarterback $40-50 million. Like if you're paying a quarterback $50 million, you need to have the other things on your team taken care of to a certain degree. Um, and I don't think that we are in that position here. So if Lamar was to come here, we just had to pay him $50 million a year. Will I go to the game? Yeah. Will I be super happy about it? Nah, I really think that we should just ride with the kid Ritter on his rookie contract, see what he's about, and then move on if it doesn't work out. Because I feel like we're in a rebuild anyway.
Now, Bill is at the combine tonight. What are you guys? Is there anybody that you're particularly thinking about targeting at number 8? I mean, there's so much intrigue here with this Chicago pick. What they're going to do with this. I mean, there's a possibility that even if they trade the number one pick to whomever, that they can also trade that next pick because it'll also be before the number 8th pick. Are you thinking about targeting the Bears?
I don't think we are, to be honest with you, because originally I thought maybe. I think they saw enough from the kid Ritter, and you look at the teams that are kind of in front of you who make a better play for that number one spot because they don't have to jump up so much to try to go get it. I don't know that we really think that we're in it. And from with every mock draft that I've seen, has us taking an edge rusher. It's not the same edge rusher I see all the time, but it has us taking an edge rusher. So I guess that's what we're leaning at right now, and we'll see because you know how this happens. You go to the combine, things change a bit. You get more drafts that come out. So I'm going to look at the updated draft boards and see, but everyone has us taking an edge rusher. And I think Ritter did just enough, James, like just enough towards the end of the year last year to kind of hold that off a little bit. I do believe he'll have a competition with whoever gets brought in. It ain't like he'll just have the job anointed to him. He'll have a competition, but I don't think his competition is going to be like any of these young rookie quarterbacks coming out of the draft.
A lot of talk about the quarterback position, of course. Uh, last couple of years, we were talking about edge rushers, wide receivers. Do you have a particular edge rusher in mind? That, like you said, it kind of seems to vary between 2 or 3 guys, but who would you? There's no Hutchinson that stands out
No,
this year.
no.
So, who are you thinking?
I don't really have any in mind. I had a kid from Texas Tech that was on the first mock draft I saw. I don't really have anybody in particular in mind for what you just said. Like we kind of know who the best players are, whether it's Anderson, Carter, Stroud, or Young. Like those top 4 or 5 players ish tend to be the best players and are going to be gone well before 8. Before we get to our pick, just as Hutchinson was, right? Hutchinson was in the top three picks, I want to say.
Number one, was it? I think Detroit. Well, he was number
Yeah,
one pick
he was.
for Detroit. I know that whatever
Yeah, he was their
position they
number
were
one
in.
pick, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure where they picked, but it was in the top picks. And I feel like even Hutchinson would have been gone at the same pick that we'd be picking at. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, eighth, you can get a dominant. I mean, you can get a dominant guy in the draft, but you just never know, James, because when we're talking about the draft, some of these guys, whether you're talking about an NBA draft or whether you're talking about an NFL draft, this is the most popular some of these guys will ever be. Is us talking about them right now into this moment. They come into the league, they disappear. We talk about the same guys every year. And then you get a couple guys that kind of fall through that are actually working out. So it's really hard for me to get wrapped up for these kids that have never played a down in their life in the NFL. But I can see how if you're a team that needs a quarterback and you're picking at the top, it could be exciting for your franchise.
Now, let's talk a little NBA before Jeffrey gets here. LeBron down at least 2 weeks before we even see him on the court or thinking about the court.
It hurts.
We had talked about, 23 games left. They need to win at least 14 games to get in the playoffs. And that was before we talked about LeBron being out for 2 weeks. At this time, he's talking about this is the All-Star time. He's talking about playing every game and how important it is, and how AD has to make sure that he stays healthy. So with Bron down, do you think AD will carry the Lakers to a playoff spot?
Oh man, it's a heavy lift, James. Like it's a heavy lift for him. Cause it was gonna be a heavy lift for LeBron there, given their previous record. If it was so easy, we figured they wouldn't be in this position.
But AD has he played 50 games this year?
That is a problem right there. Like it's rough trying to depend. Because I mean, I remember I was watching the game the other day. LeBron was already gone, so this game was like last night, I want to say. And you had to hold your breath every time AD dove into the crowd, every time he dove for a ball, every time he hits the ground. These guys that are injury prone, every single time that happens, you got to hold your breath. They're going to get up from that, you know?
Well, wait a minute. Hold. Now, if you watch it, maybe we didn't watch the same game, but did you watch the Hawks game? Was it John Morant against them the other night? Every basket he scored was within 13 feet of the basket. Well, most of them. I mean, so I mean, you talk about him diving. I mean, he can't even clog up the middle without LeBron there. That there's no
I think that
spacing. I mean,
LeBron not being there creates so many different problems for them, James. But I think at the end of the day, for me, what does getting into the playoff means besides a legacy move? Like if you look at where that team is, and you know what, it's funny you bring up the Hawks because I can kind of lump them into this situation too. Because if we get into the playoffs, I'm not. Who cares if we second round bounce, third? Like where are we thinking we're going to get eliminated at first round? Because when you look at some of these teams that are at the top of the East and at the top of the West, James, do we really feel like the Lakers really have a shot? Like we say, we look at LeBron. I like AD. I like LeBron. But do we genuinely think that they're going to be able to go into the playoffs? I mean, I can't say that they're the first team that teams want to play. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say people just love seeing LeBron or somebody on the other side. But I just genuinely don't believe they're as good as the better teams. And I feel the same way with my home team. Like, if we get into the playoffs, I don't think we're all of a sudden going toe to toe with a Boston or Milwaukee or something like that,
yeah. Well, like you said, it's mostly a legacy move for LeBron.
For sure.
Not him. Will this be his third?
It'll be his second miss if he misses this year.
Okay.
In a row.
Second in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, even though I'm not a LeBron fan, like I said, and it's a regional rivalry thing. It has, I mean, it's kind of a personal thing, but I mean, the man is damn near 40 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk. We talked about Tom Brady, but you're talking about a 16-game season or an 18-game season, as opposed to an 83-game season of playing basketball. Now, physically, you can say, well, they don't match up, but when you think of, that the constant movement that a basketball player puts on his body, running up and down, I mean, I found as an athlete, it was much easier to get in football shape than it was to get in basketball shape.
No, that's interesting.
Football shape, you play offense, you play defense. It's kind of specialized. Where basketball is constant movement, constant transition, offense, defense, running backwards, running for change of direction. I mean, I'm and as you can see, I'm pro football, but I mean, when you think of a man of that age still being able to compete with these kids that are coming out of college,
that's special in of itself, right there, to be honest with you.
I mean, so I see Mr. Scott is here. We're going to talk a little bit about his Timberwolves also. Mr. Scott, how are you doing this evening?
Very good. Good, gentlemen. Sounded like you might have been talking about my good friend, Take My Talents. And then, his crony now, the pundits are really just throwing darts at them. I mean, they have really become punching bags.
Low-hanging fruit. Absolutely.
I mean, at one time we were talking about, the Gobert trade. Now that that has nobody's even talking about that anymore.
No. And then Take My Talents. He's done. And then it's so funny. AD.
I've never seen Mr.
They call him street clothes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's half the NBA is seemingly right now. I've seen all these outfits. I've seen outfits on every team. I see what everybody's closet looks like this year.
Yeah, Karl Anthony Towns had some big jacking on the other night. My cousin in Atlanta called me and said, "Boy, he's got Louis Vuitton. He's sporting a Louis Vuitton, sitting on the bench, collecting money."
So, do you think that the Lakers have any chance of making the playoffs without Take My Talents, since he's out these 2 weeks?
Well, I used to. I mean, I thought when they made the trade and they fleeced the Timberwolves to get D'Lo and Malik Beasley. I'll tell you, Malik Beasley, man, is no joke. He is no joke whatsoever. And the other guy, the Vanderbilt. Oh my God, what a hard working. So they stole the Timberwolves' chance really to do anything. But now Take My Talents, he's out. Street clothes, he's out. I don't know. What are they going to do?
Yeah, it's interesting. I took I have Vanderbilt on a fantasy basketball team.
Okay.
It didn't. I was kind of glad to see it come to the Lakers, but he was putting up great stats to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's a bad boy. He's a bad boy.
Yeah.
But Take My Talent. It's sad. I mean, my cousin calls me from Atlanta all the time. The Lakers are done. Stick a fork in them. Lakers are done. But then we made that trade, and I said, okay, well, I think you're done because your coach, you done fired your coach and hired Quinn. What's his name from the Quinn Snyder. Why would you hire him at this stage of the game? Why don't you let the assistant guy keep going if you want to get rid of your coach? So he calls up now. Now I can't get him on the line. I call him, it just rings. Phone just rings, but don't do it. You don't answer.
Well, Reggie's from Atlanta. Reggie, what is going on with Quinn Snyder? I mean, come on.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I mean, it's not like I don't even know how he got on the list. But I mean, so maybe since you're down here in Atlanta, you have some insight. I mean, was this a Trey Young request? I mean, what happened here?
I think that well, first of all, when we talked about this before, I remember saying that you guys had asked me what's going on in Atlanta. I told you I had no clue what's going on in Atlanta. I still don't know what's going on. Like I there has not really been much clarification in the sense that I don't know that it was all Nate's fault. When you look at Nate was a great winning coach. He's been a great winning coach for 18 years in the NBA. So if you're going to fire a guy that's got a winning record, he's got a 532 record, I want to say, his 18 years in the NBA, that's a winning record. I don't really know what much else you want from a coach. Like, and in that 18 years, he's had like 3 to 4 losing seasons in that time. So I'm not sure what this is about. What it seems like to me is just giving Trey Young what he wants. Evidently, Trey Young didn't want him there. So the guy is out of there. And because they didn't give Nate McMillan $200 million, they felt like compelled to go with what Trey Young or acquiesce to what Trey Young wants. So he got another coach. I think this one kind of has to work out. Like at a certain point, you're going to be called a coach killer if you rotate another coach out of there. So he's averaging about roughly a coach a year at this particular point. So the Quinn Snyder situation, maybe it's somebody he wanted. I'm not sure. I didn't exactly throw a parade for the guy. I don't feel no one way or the other about it because if Trey doesn't change, there's something with the chemistry of the team doesn't change. There's only so much a coach can do. When you look at what's going on with the Nets last year, Kyrie was taking vacations in the middle of the year. If one of your main guys is going on vacation in the middle of the year, you don't even know where he's at. There's only so much more you can do with the players. The players are the ones that basically have to play. It's only so much that coaches can do.
Yeah, Jason Kidd. Now you talk about take my talents elsewhere, Mr. Scott. We see that Flat Earth is now with the Mavericks, and it seems like Jason Kidd has started already to defer to Kyrie. He's he said Luka was a young 24, and that his job was to help make him better. But do you think that Doncic is a tough love kind of guy, or do you think that sooner or later, Luka is going to say, hey, like I was the man before he got here. I'm still the man. How
Yeah,
do you think this is going to work out, Mr. Scott?
yeah. I guess I just have to say, why would you want Kyrie? Why would they want him in the first place? Because that they had a thing going. I mean, they had a good coach. They were a gritty team. I mean, Luka was. I mean, hey, he's giving you 30, 40 every night. I mean, what more can the man do? So I don't think it's going to work out because of Kyrie. I think that the Earth is flat, and whatever it is he brings, I mean, I think on one level he really makes some salient points about the things he believes in and what have you. But he has a job to do. He's not paid to do that. He's not paid to tell people about the flat Earth. He's not. People don't come to the stadium to hear about that bullshit. They come to see him play basketball, and that's where, to me, he continues to fall down. And I think I think it's a negative for Dallas. I think it's a stone negative.
I know it's only a small sample, Reggie, but with 20 games left, you're 1-4 with Kyrie, and I mean, with this combination. I mean, what's your thoughts? I mean, was this, fool's gold here?
I think this is a move they made to try to show Luka that they're doing something. This is a Luka we're trying move, in my opinion, because with how fickle some of these NBA players can be, I'm not accusing him of this in particular, but these guys will sign a 4-year deal and leave the next year. Like it didn't used to be like, if people used to play their contracts out, used to have a certain amount of security with these superstar players. But now these players, you got to show them almost annually that you're trying to put certain players around them. I don't know if that ever works well for players to be playing GM, because you see from his basketball situation, it doesn't seem to work out and the player can just leave. And now your franchise is kind of left to however it's left. This particular situation with Kyrie is kind of short term for them. The Mavs have I think for 1 year. I don't think he's signed a multi-year deal yet there. So I think everybody was taking kind of a wait and see approach to this to see if it works out. In order for this to work out, in my opinion, if Luka got to the Western Conference Finals without Kyrie, they got to do better than that. You got to get to the finals, because otherwise, if you get to the Western Conference Finals again and that's just the ceiling, you're doing pretty much what you did when you had Jalen Brunson there. I feel like Kyrie's a better player than Jalen Brunson, but you're having the same results that you had with Jalen Brunson there. So I think this is one big experiment in Dallas, and I don't know that they have any illusions themselves that it's going to work out 100%, but I do think that they had to show Luka that they were trying to do something by bringing on another free agent.
Now, I don't know whether it's quiet, or whether or not like people just don't want to talk about it. But Mike Brown, uh, the Kings coach, uh, right now he has the Kings sitting at number 3 in the Western Conference. Do you think that Mike Brown should have consideration for the Coach of the Year, Reggie?
Yes, absolutely. And Mike Brown, for one, Mike Brown's not a bad coach. Mike Brown's a good coach. He's bounced around the NBA as well. Same way as Nate has kind of bounced around. Mike Brown's bounced around. Like, he coached here at one point in Atlanta. If the Kings maintain this, if the Kings maintain staying in that top 3, how do you not at least consider him? It's not to say that we know he's going to win. We have to look at more details, get to the end of the year, kind of see what happens there. But Sacramento Kings in 3rd. I mean, come on, guys. Like, if we had talked about this previous season of the last 3 to 4 years, I don't know if anybody would have had a Sacramento Kings sniff in the top 3. So the fact that he has them there, I think definitely deserves some consideration for Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
What's your opinion of Mike Brown, Mr. Scott? A lot of people were, talking about, how he got a bad deal at the Lakers, and some different spots that he was at. But Mike Brown has always been an excellent coach, and not just that, he's been a pro player coach. He's found a way to work these young guys because I believe they're one of the youngest teams in the league, at least in the top 10 as far as youth. What's your thoughts on Mike Brown and why we don't hear more about him being a candidate of the year coach?
Well, the only thing I can say is that he's in Sacramento. I mean, that's just kind of in the hinterlands of the
man.
NWA of the NBA. So, but other than that, but that can be the good thing too. Nobody's paying no attention to him because I keep seeing him night after night. Oh, I go through with my cousin. He thinks he knows everything. They think because he's in Atlanta. Yeah, I'm in the ATL. Blah blah blah. This blah blah. You think you know everything, and I keep telling so we go through who's going to win, who's going to. Oh, we got Sacramento. Sacramento ain't got it, and Sacramento keeps winning, and Sacramento keeps moving up the thing. Nobody's paying attention, which I think is great. For them, I really do. It's not a whole lot of pressure. Just keep playing your game. They got the coach very solid, very solid. He can read the momentum, which way it's going. I think he sees this wave is going, and so he's going to mix these players. And I think good things. Good things. Now that Take My Talents, you don't have to worry about them in street clothes. They seem like they're done, and so that moves. That moves a lot of people up. Maybe even the Timberwolves move up now. Even though they have their own street clothes with Towns, but we'll see.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, we'll see. Dame Lillard. Dame says we develop people's body of work, even if you don't win titles. Do you think that Damon's loyalty will help or hinder his legacy, Reggie?
I don't think it hinders. It's not helping though. Like, what does that help? There's no stay with your team of year award in the Hall of Fame. I think he's a Hall of Famer. But there's no extra reward for staying with the team for 20, 30 years. You don't get any extra marks. And I mean, maybe that would be I don't know. Even if it was somebody was on the edge of getting into the Hall of Fame, I don't think this is people would take them over. Like, they don't look at your resume and say, hey, you stayed with the same team for X amount of years. So now it catapults you a little bit higher than you would have been. Would it help his legacy is for him to win a championship? That is what will help his legacy. Will that happen in Portland? No. I'm telling you that right. Not until somebody goes to Portland with him. If Dame is staying in Portland by himself, he just has too much competition from better teams. That's not to say they're all better players, because Dame, to me, first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's a one-man band right now in Portland, and you're going to have to eventually play other teams that are better. If he somehow gets them to a championship, he definitely deserves extra credit for being a guy that stayed with his franchise, was able to do it by himself and get them over the hump. I just think that that's very hard to do in today's NBA. So if he stays in Portland and decides to kind of say, well, I'm loyal and I'm just going to stay here, that's fine. But I don't think there's any championships coming to Portland anytime soon without somebody coming there to help him.
But Mr. Scott, Dame's kickback is that, well, just because I leave Portland and join up with these other superstars doesn't guarantee me a championship either. So I mean, what's your thoughts there? Should he, take his talents or stay in Portland?
Well, what the gentleman said earlier, this longevity thing in today's world, these people are chasing the paper. I mean, they want their bag. I mean, this is really what it's all about.
He's not doing too bad, Mr. Scott.
But that doesn't mean you don't want more.
He's going to earn, at the end of this contract, he'll have earned $500 million.
Yep. And when his career is over, he's going to be making minimum wage somewhere. And so he knows that. So
What's minimum wage? $500 million. Let me figure that. Let me see.
When his
That's a
career
long way
is
away.
over, I'm just saying, to answer the question, longevity with the same team, I just, it used to be when there was bitter rivalries with teams. There used to be very bitter rivalry, Yankees and Boston. I mean, that was, oh boy, there's no way I'm going to play for Boston. I'll quit first before I play for Boston. And so, but now you don't have any of those kind of real.
I don't think you ever.
Green
I don't
Bay
think you've ever
Bears, they
been
don't
to
have
the
a
Celtics.
bitter rivalry. So I don't think
I
teams
don't
have
think you.
any affinity.
I don't think you've ever been to a Knicks Celtic game either, Mr. Scott.
No, but I have been to Madison Square Garden and seen the Knicks.
See, like you said, talk about bitter rivalries. I mean,
No, a lot of these guys are sharing agents and stuff right now. So
Yeah,
like they're making phone calls. It's just a total different landscape than it used to be.
The bag. They want the bag, man. They want papered up.
yeah, it's kind of amazing now how things can change, kind of like at the drop of a hat. KD has his debut tonight with his new team, the Suns. I haven't seen any of it yet. I think it might start at 10 o'clock my time. But what's your thoughts on KD finally getting off the bench and on the floor? I mean, a healthy KD for the last 18 games and the playoffs. What do the Suns look like to you? Is Denver the real number one in the West, Mr. Scott?
Well, again, KD is another street clothes. I mean, he plays sometime. He comes up there all bony and he don't even really look like he takes the thing serious. I mean, he just goes out there and does his laissez-faire. So no, I don't. And then Chris Paul, I mean, to me, he's past his use by date. I mean, I'm sorry. You'll see glimpses of things every now and then, but for the most part, he's past his use by date. I mean, so no. You see, these guys, I don't. KD's another one. Him and Kyrie, my goodness, what are these brothers thinking of? What's in their head? I can't figure it out. So no, but they got the veterans. He's good. Him and with the Clippers with Kawhi. See, those really are one of those guys that can win championships. See, Kawhi, he showed he done it with a couple different teams. He's liable to pull this sleight of hand again with the Clippers. He really is.
Well, I wasn't going to mention it, but since you brought the Clippers into this, there's another team that's 1-4 since they acquired their new gentleman, Mr. Russell Westbrook. What did you think? What did you think about the buyout and then the Clippers picking him up, Reggie?
I thought that's what was going to happen. I mean, I didn't think that there was any second that he was going to step one foot in Utah. Like he didn't change. Nothing changed in his life when that move got made. So when Russell Westbrook got moved, I don't think that any aspect of his life changed whatsoever. He was staying in LA. I'd have thought there was no. I mean, maybe he plays for Utah, but they're in rebuild land there. I don't see they had no point. Basically, this is a contract that they could move. So I never thought that he was actually going to step foot in Utah. Now that he's with the Clippers, I mean, there's something there. It could happen. It could happen. You never know. Going through a long playoff stretch, you got a guy coming off the bench with a certain amount of energy. It could happen for them, but it's going to depend more so on the top two guys. NBA is top heavy. So if Kawhi can't go, if PG-13 can't go, it ain't going to matter as much. So a lot of that's going to depend on health, no matter what happens. As much as I don't dislike Westbrook as a lot of other people, I don't know that moves the meter. I wasn't necessarily ready to stamp the Clippers to the finals when I heard about it, that trade.
We are joined now by Mr. Jeffrey Fann, of course, usually from Talking ACC Sports, along with our good friend Don Hayes. How are you gentlemen doing this evening?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing good tonight.
Now, usually when we start, it is March 1st. We know we're getting ready for March Madness, and usually by now, we've kind of got things established about where we think our teams are and whatnot. But this is a year that I don't know if I really see an outstanding number one or number two. I mean, is Kansas going to repeat? Are we going to see, what about those guys down there in Texas? Jeffrey, what's going on in the ACC?
Yeah, as far as the ACC, I mean, I think we can, all agree there's not really an elite team in the conference this year, and it's been anchored by a really bad bottom. But I think the national perception, that the league is like so down. It's kind of it's skewed by teams like Louisville and Florida State that were so bad during November and December. I mean, you've got Georgia Tech too, and with a net in the 180s, or Louisville's been in the 300s most of the year. So when you take a loss to one of those teams, I mean, it just buries your computer numbers. But I mean, the top 7, 8, 9 teams in the conference. I mean, I think they showed out of conference that, I mean, they can play high quality basketball. You saw Virginia earlier in the year beating Baylor, winning at Michigan, beating Illinois. Miami has beaten Rutgers, even Duke. They got a win over Xavier in Iowa in the non-conference. So I mean, they're going to get probably 6, maybe 7 teams into the NCAA tournament. But do they have a team that can win a national championship? I don't think so. But I think a team like Miami is capable of getting to the Final Four with their guard play. If Virginia can get back, shooting the ball the way they did earlier in the year, they can definitely make a run. North Carolina, they got to get into the tournament first. But I mean, we've seen what they can do when they're right. I mean, they took Alabama to 4 overtimes. Probably should have beat Alabama in that game. They're just so inconsistent in the half court. But I mean, if they can, they've got the talent to go on a similar run. Maybe not as deep as last year's team without a guy like Manic on a 3-point line, but I mean they've got a chance to be a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament if they can get into the tournament. And then look at Duke. Duke's come along. They're probably playing the most consistent basketball in the ACC over the last 3 weeks. And if they can just find a little bit of perimeter shooting, I mean they're gonna be a really dangerous a 6 or 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. So I don't think the league is nearly as bad as it's been, being put across the country here. I mean, you look, they won the ACC, the Big Ten Challenge earlier in the year. They played 25 games against the Big Ten and had a winning record. And that includes the atrocious bottom that they have, and I think it's just skewed by a really bad 4 or 5 teams.
Reggie, what's your thoughts of the upcoming March Madness?
I feel like the audience would only get dumber if I was to speak on this subject because I have no clue what's going on with NCAA basketball. I don't really ever watch it. I enjoy listening I'm trying to listen to what Jeff was saying just there, see if I can pick up something here because I have no clue what's going on. I'm not going to know. I'm filling out my bracket just like anybody else.
Okay, no problem.
But that's just about it. I know what's going on with the kid in Alabama only because that's off the court kind of drama. So I know what's going on with that, but I don't know. I have zero clue what's going on in NCAA.
You got any thoughts on that, Mr. Scott?
Well, I kind of almost co-signed the college basketball. My mind is so overloaded with things, but I follow Big Ten sports, and I really want to see what Purdue is going to do. I mean, because I watched that 7'4" center Last year, I was in Chicago and I saw some games, and he couldn't catch the ball. I mean, they throw it to him and he flubbed it. But I watched him this year, and he's a force. And I really want to see if this guy is really for real at 7'4". I mean, usually you get 7 feet and above can be kind of suspect for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know if it's coordination. I don't know. But that's the only thing I could say. I'm just really interested to see how Purdue, with this big center, and I've watched their team play several times. How they'll I think they play old school, very old school basketball, and I'd like to see how far it goes.
Well, Don, that brings us to Texas. Are they the force to be reckoned with that everybody's talking about?
You know what? Texas is schizophrenic. You never know what you're going to get, which personality they're going to bring out. Right now, they're struggling with a very mediocre TCU team. Last I checked, they were down 12-5. Look at some updates. You asked a question. Texas has been through a lot this year, off the court, with the assault charges against Chris Beard, and, he got fired for that. And then his fiance recanted everything, of course. But Coach Terry's done a great job, I think. I think Texas should have just given him the job outright instead of waiting this long. I think they would have a little bit more of a positive spin for the team, something they could take out the back of their minds and say, he's our coach going forward, long term. I wish the athletic director would go and make that call. But right now, it's like he's applying for the job with the season. It's like his tryout. So we'll see if they beat TCU tonight. They I'm sorry, guys. We've had some bad weather changes here in San Antonio. If they beat TCU tonight, they will clinch a share of the Big 12 title. If they beat TCU tonight, I think Kansas loses, then they clinch it outright. But it's going to be some work. I'm not real competent that – I'm sorry. I'm not feeling competent that Texas will advance very far in the postseason. I think they're a tournament team, but I don't see them going very deep just because they're inconsistent.
Ranger seems to agree with you. Jeffrey, I mentioned earlier, what about that Kansas team? Is there a chance that they can repeat?
I do think there's a chance they can repeat, and it's not necessarily that I think they're an unbeatable team, but as you guys were starting out, when I joined the show, this is one of those years where the top 4 seeds are not really that strong. I mean, I could easily see the Final Four with one or fewer number 1 seed team, and I mean, you have to put Kansas in that mix of one of those teams that's capable of getting all the way. I mean, I like Purdue. Edie is fantastic. Like Anthony was saying, I mean, they run a great offense there, but no one is going to look at Purdue and say they're unbeatable. As athletic as Alabama is, I mean, they've got like 4 double-digit losses to top 20 teams. They got thumped it by Oklahoma, who's sitting at near the bottom of the Big 12. So, they're not unbeatable. We know Gonzaga's not unbeatable. Arizona, we've seen Kansas struggle. So, I think a team like Kansas, though, who's been there before, coached by Bill Self, they're starting to play really well here at the end of the year. They had a little struggle during the middle part of the Big 12 season. I mean, I think they're as good as candidate as anyone out there right now about repeating. I mean, they're definitely very capable of winning another national championship.
Mr. Scott mentioned Purdue there. as a possible Cinderella. Uh, uh,
Breaking up.
you think might be a Cinderella, maybe a Marquette or somebody?
Well, I'm gonna, in listening to the astute analysis of Jeffrey, I think my thing is going to be underdogs. I mean, I think that there's, the games that I've watched, there's so many games and I catch them. The talent level I see of these teams, I mean, are just unbelievable. So I think it's quite possible some of these schools, as we're seeing, these schools you never hear much of are not glamour type schools. So yeah, I'm just looking at underdogs. I mean, not that I do that type of a thing. I mean, I'm appalled by that type of stuff. But if I was, going to take, I would take, the underdog.
Sounds like you're coming around to analytics there, Mr. Scott. Don, you got a Cinderella? Other than maybe your Texas Longhorns?
No, Texas, they're not a Cinderella. For me, a team like, probably Kansas, even though that's kind of far-fetched to call them an underdog, but Kansas has been kind of inconsistent throughout the year. I mean, they've won about, I think, 21 games, but they're like Texas. They lose games they shouldn't lose. Keep an eye out for Arizona. Arizona is humming it, I think. So I'll go with Arizona. Why not?
Jeffrey, you got a Cinderella?
I'm not sure if I have a national Cinderella just yet, but when I look at those ACC teams, if I wanted to say which ACC team do I think could make a really surprising run in the tournament, and it is because of what a lot of you have all said, there is no truly great team this year. I think you can definitely see a team, from 8, 9, 10 seed making a deep run. And if you're looking for someone maybe from the ACC, and you've seen it in the past when teams have made surprise runs. I mean, they usually have great scorers that just go crazy for like 5 or 6 games. And you can look at a Miami with Isaiah Wong or a Tre'Quavion Smith at NC State. I mean, those are guys that can just put up a ton of points. And I mean, I could see NC State being a 10 seed, and making a run to the Elite 8, where Tre'Quavion Smith, averages 25 points a game. And you look at what those two teams have over maybe even like a Virginia or even North Carolina, who doesn't have spectacular guard play. You could see those two guys just, take over games for 3 or 4 games and really making deep runs. I mean, North Carolina has a guy like that could do that. He did it a lot last year, Caleb Love, but he's been pretty inconsistent this year. But I mean, when I'm going to look at when the brackets come out, this year I'm going to see which teams have like great scorers on their team that I think can just go off and get on a hot streak. It's going to be really hard to predict this year's brackets, because I mean, I think you're going to have like 6 and 7 seeds that are just about as good as the 1 and 2 seeds for sure this year.
Well, it sounds like it might be a very interesting tournament, but let's see. Well, Jeffrey, can you shed any more light on what's going on with the Twins down there in Miami and the NIL situation? Has that case cleared up anything as far as Miami's concerned? Has it done anything as far as the NIL situation is concerned? Because it doesn't seem like the booster that was concerned, that was involved, there was any consequences for him. So did this case really work for the NIL or the University of Miami? What what is your version of the outcome of this?
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations that we see the NCAA get into from time to time, where they try to act like they have control of something, and they end up uh, punishing some school and laying sanctions down on their women's tennis team, or some school like Hofstra or something like that gets you know a postseason ban. So they go after these sometimes fairly inconsequential violations, I would call it, and act like they're actually trying to do something. And in this case, the way I understand it is one of the Miami women's coaches set up a meeting between the twins when they were transferring from Fresno State to have dinner with a booster, and he started talking about um, what they could offer as an NIL there at Miami. The name is Ruiz. He's a multimillionaire there at Miami, and like you said, his comments were, it doesn't really affect me. He said it could affect the coaches, but here I'm just trying to support my team. So for him, doesn't matter. For the Twins, they don't care either. It's a pretty small violation in the end. I think at some point, and it probably won't be the NCAA, but the Power Five, will get together and kind of create their own rules for NIL. But I think this is just kind of one of those last gasp attempts by the NCAA to act like they're in control of something, because you're not supposed to work on the NIL. I think it's something like you're not supposed to work on the NIL deals before the transfers actually happen, and yeah, I think it's pretty inconsequential what the NCAA did, and it seems like that's kind of what they do. They'll go after somebody's tennis team or something to, yeah. They're just a group that just doesn't have much relevance anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, maybe if it wasn't, women's basketball, you know that it's happening in other places on bigger
Yeah,
scales. I mean, so
that's for sure. And I think that these bigger programs are getting frustrated with each other. So I do think there will be some eventual regulation, but it'll come from the conferences and the programs themselves. And I don't think it will really come from the NCAA, unless it's the conferences, telling the NCAA this is what we're going to do, and you can get behind it or not. But as far as the NCAA taking control, I don't really see that happening.
uh, Jeffrey, are there any coaches in the ACC on the hot seat?
I Yeah, there's a couple that are there on the hot seat. We know Mike Bray has had a really struggled at Notre Dame this year, but he's basically, he already announced he's retiring, and if he wasn't, he would probably be on the hot seat. Um, Josh Pastner is the name that comes up on the hot seat from Georgia Tech. He's looking at, right now, he's got 29 losses in the ACC over the last 2 years, following an ACC champion. But Georgia Tech's got, they have financial issues, so they're going to probably try to hold on to Pastner as long as they can, and they are playing better. And if he was at another school, he probably would not finish the year. Um, but because he's at Georgia Tech, I think he's got a 50%, 50-50 shot at coming back next year. You look at Payne there at Louisville. He's in year number 1, but Louisville has been so bad this year. I mean, they're 4-26, is historically, maybe the worst ACC team in history by computer metrics, by by maybe 100 spots in the RPI and net, and they're 310 right now. If a coach can be on the hot seat after 1 year, Payne there at Louisville is. Um, and another coach, I think, kind of, he can probably name when he's going to leave. But last night, Jim Boeheim there at Syracuse, they played, and I just talked about Georgia Tech, who struggled this year scoring the ball, and Georgia Tech set team program records for 3-point shots made against Syracuse in a 20-point win. At Syracuse, 96 points, and it was worse than 96-76 because Georgia Tech didn't score like the last 3.5 minutes of the game except for 1 2-point basket, and that program, Syracuse, it's just stale. It's stale now. They've lost 4 games by more than 15 points, and I don't think they're gonna. This has that feel with Jim Boeheim of like Bobby Bowden at the end of Florida State. You don't feel right about firing him, but for your program to move forward, that he probably should be encouraged to go ahead and retire, and that's the way it feels at Syracuse right now. I mean, they looked lifeless last night, completely lifeless on the defensive end. It wasn't the matchup zone you're used to seeing where, shooters are being, locked up and you can't get into the paint. I mean, Georgia Tech was, it was like practice for them last night.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that for a lot of games, and not just on the college level. But Jeffrey, we want to thank you so much for coming in and giving us a preview. We look forward to having you back as things narrow down a little bit, and there's also might be some moves within the ACC football community. So, uh, can you give us your final thoughts for the evening and tell people where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Talking ACC Sports. Um, tweeting about the ACC in general and college sports, and then blogging at allsportsdiscussion.com. Yeah, my final thought is I love this time of year. Can't wait for the tournament. It's always wild, and this year I think it's going to be like chaos times 10 because there are no truly great teams, and like I was saying earlier, those teams, those double-digit seeds, are going to be as close to the ones and twos that we've seen. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of ones and twos go down before even the second weekend. It's going to be a crazy, crazy tournament.
Hey, well, we look forward to having that type of exciting tournament that you're talking about. And thank you so much for your time. We
Hey,
appreciate Jeffrey.
thanks for having me. I always enjoy it.
Uh, Reggie, I know we don't have you for too much longer, but uh, I have to talk about Eric Bieniemy before you leave. Um, Now, I've talked about Eric Bieniemy for a few years now, and why he's never become a head coach. Is it the fact that after all these, I mean, after all of these years, can you just say that he's a bad interview? Didn't seem like it when he took the podium for the Commanders, and we know that he's had some transgressions in his youth, earlier in his career, over 2 decades ago. So I don't know whether that's being held against him or not. But he speaks of this independence, uh, being the offensive coordinator, uh, going to the Commanders. And of course, I understand. Okay, this will be his team. Win, lose, or draw, this is Eric Bieniemy's team. Doesn't matter. Now that he's taken the job, whatever criticism comes down is not coming down on Andy Reid or who he hired. It's coming down on Eric Bieniemy. Should he have ever had the job? Blah blah blah. But I don't see this. Maybe it's the difference in salary. I haven't looked into the salary, what he's being paid, but I do not see this as a move upward in Eric. I don't see how it would add unless he would lead the Commanders to a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not telling you to go and bet the house or nothing like that, but I mean, this is the way I see him building on his leg. It seems like he's moving at best parallel.
At best.
What's your thoughts on the whole hiring of the enemy? Do you think it was just he was he didn't want to be under Andy Reid anymore? But then when you look at who replaced him, that might be a little that might be something else to talk about next week. But what's your whole thoughts on this Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, Super Bowl champions, to what appears right now to be the bottom dwellers in the NFC North? NFC North, I'm sorry.
So it's
NFC East.
Yeah, the NFC East. They I hate it. I hate the move. I there's nothing about this I like. I think this is I understand where he may be coming from in the sense of thinking that I don't think the only issue Bieniemy had three issues in my opinion. One was the fact that you've had 12, 13, 14 interviews. Once somebody's had that many interviews, some things start to become self-prophesizing to a certain degree because you've had so many interviews. People are wondering why you didn't get hired. And some of the interviews that you were interviewed for, a minority coach still got hired there. So it wasn't necessarily that they weren't hiring a minority coach. They weren't hiring you. So that's one thing he had working against him. The other two things he has working against him is the fact that he didn't just have one a Hall of Famer. He was behind. He had two. He had Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. It wasn't just one Hall of Famer there. He had two Hall of Famers there. So it's hard to say that Eric Bieniemy was majorly responsible because if you got to take one person out of that equation with it, you do Bieniemy, you do Andy Reid, you do Patrick Mahomes. It's easy to see who's coming out and people feel like there will still be some level of success there. So I feel like Bieniemy made the move that he felt he needed to make to Washington, but it's a long way to go to Sam Howell from Patrick Mahomes. I don't understand. There's only so much coordinating. You can be the best coordinator in the world, but you still got Sam Howell. Like you can't coordinate him into Patrick Mahomes. So it's kind of like, it's unfortunate, guys, to be honest with you, because I really wish there was a situation he can go to with a nice quarterback there, really get a chance to see what the guy can do and see if he's just been maligned and that's everybody against him, or if he really couldn't cut it outside of Andy Reid. The not calling plays thing is ridiculous because a lot of guys didn't call. If you coach under Andy Reid, you're not calling plays, and a lot of guys got hired.
Nagy didn't call any plays, and isn't he a head coach now?
Yeah, so it's not to me. It's not that to me. It's just a combination of things. The fact that you've interviewed so much, the fact that you got a Hall of Fame quarterback that you were coordinating for, and you were coordinating under a Hall of Fame coach. So he did need to get out, but I don't know if this is going to be the answer. Like the Washington Super Bowl almost made me laugh. I was trying not to interrupt you right there, but I almost cracked up when you said that just now. Like they're so far away. I hope it works out for him, but it's hard for me to see how like you're going, like maybe work out is a winning season, maybe first round of the playoffs. I think we got to set the bar a little bit into the realistic range and start looking at metrics. If they start to do better, maybe on first down, third down conversions, if they start to do better on points scored, if they start to do better on certain things, then maybe that'll be a testament to his acumen, so to speak. But guys, I mean, Sam Howell's just not Patrick Mahomes. Like it's so hard for me to get excited about that. And Washington versus, come on, the Commanders versus the Chiefs. The Commanders are a dumpster fire of an organization. So it's kind of like I feel kind of bad for the guy, to be honest with you, having to go to this situation, going kind of from the top to the somewhat bottom. And I wish him luck, man. I hope he does well.
Mr. Scott, we discussed Eric Bieniemy before. What's your thoughts? Going from the Chiefs to the Commanders. I mean, did he get his C's mixed up or something? What's going on?
That whole division. I mean, the Giants, Dallas, Commanders. They ain't no good. I mean, that's Dallas. I don't know what's wrong. They got all the talent in the world. They can't win. So he could make. in a strange way, it just seems like he could actually make some noise there. But as far as him not getting a head coaching job, I mean, Indianapolis hired a guy that never had coached before. They hired a guy in mid-season that had never coached. And so, and Bieniemy coaching Super Bowl winning quarterback can't get a job. Well, I don't have an answer for it. I mean, that's, like I say, Indianapolis hired somebody that never coached before. So you tell me, James, you seem to have all the answers. You tell me.
Well, my answer might not be everybody else's answer, but I really think that he passed up some excellent coaching jobs before, in the hopes that by now Andy Reid would be retired and he would be the next head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, I mean, we always talk about going out on top. Andy Reid's won 2 out of 3 Super Bowls that he's been to. So you take him into the office and tell him why he should retire and give Eric Bieniemy his job. I mean, how much fun do you think a man his age is having? Just being still in that spotlight. I mean, no offense meant, but look at us old codgers sitting around here talking about the old days and what we did in high school and what we did. I mean, so to actually be in that spotlight in the Super Bowl, year, or at least in the playoffs year after year. I mean, you're asking an old man to give up his dream. Don, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, maybe if Andy Reid had a losing season, maybe if he had went the Chicago way and drafted Mitch Trubisky instead of Patrick Mahomes, maybe Eric Bieniemy would be the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. What's your thoughts, Don?
Well, I thought about it. And it's almost like Bieniemy is like challenging himself. I mean, like, if he stays at Kansas City, the bar is, well, win another Super Bowl, been there, done that. By going to Washington, Washington, the bar is set, can we win 8 games next season? I mean, that's how bad it is. So, maybe he's thinking, I'll prove them wrong. I can take this team and, revamp the offense and, score about 32 points a game. And he's not going to do that with Sam Howell, but, he might find another quarterback somewhere in the offseason. Who knows? But, Washington needs a lot of help. And, this season does not indicate what will happen next season. As we know, turn around, a few players here and there can change the trajectory, but I think he's bitten off a big piece of that candy bar, and he's going to have to swallow it.
Glad you referred to it as candy.
Yeah,
but
I mean, hey, I hope he's successful. I would love to see. He's kind of got that chip on his shoulder, that bad boy thing going on, and I'd love to see him be. He's like the rebel. You always go for the rebels, and he definitely fits that criteria.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see because like I said, to me, it seems more like a parallel move and not an upward move.
Oh, it's not even a parallel move. That's that's like trading your Rolls Royce and saying, "Hey, I'm going to take this Chevy." I mean,
yeah, absolutely, it's a down move. Sure.
There's nothing parallel about that.
Don, what do you think about another proposed rule change, and that's the Eagles and other teams are saying that they should be able to keep that quarterback push tactic as the NFL is set to reconsider the rule. Well, I mean, this is a rule it's been around for quite some time. It just seems that the Eagles just were the ones that were able to use it to its advantage this year. So, Donna, eh, when you look at a league that has its emphasis on scoring, do you think that the NFL is going to keep this rule, or do you think that they're going to find a way to scrap it?
Part of me kind of hopes they keep it. I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, it's been part of the game for a while now. But every time the rule change comes up, there's pros and cons of everything. But I would personally like to see it to stay.
Reggie.
Mm-hmm. Same question?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna get out of here after this, guys. Appreciate you having me on. I kind of agree with what you guys have said up to this point. Like, it's when you see somebody doing something that you feel gives them an edge, copy the rule. It's not an Eagles rule. You can do the same thing yourself. And if I'm a team and I see that, I'm lined up like that every single time. Like, forget it. This is what we're running. 4th and short, we're running it every single time. Now, personnel wise, you might have now everybody's got Jalen Hurts back there. So personnel wise, they might have some struggles for some other teams trying to run that exact same play. But if the play is legal, it's not just legal for one team. I'm not sure why it would take a team running a play 17, 18 weeks, running it all the way up through the Super Bowl before other teams decide, hey, maybe we should run this same play. I mean, we all see the play. We all see the plays after they get ran every single week. We all see the games. Other teams should just adopt it. And if the NFL gets tired of teams having what they feel is an automatic, because it's kind of what I've heard as the reason they want it out, because they feel like it's an automatic first, then maybe they deal with it then. But I'm not really with teams complaining about what other teams can do when they can do the same thing if they chose to.
Well, hey, Reg, good to have you in. Spend a little time with you. Glad you were able to get a few NFL questions in. And why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and, let us know what's going on as far as your final thoughts this evening.
You can find me at reginatl.com. ReginATL show I do, and Just the Stats show I do, Spotify's, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. And here's the hoping for, I wasn't really super excited for March Madness now, though. Jefrey coming on and saying how close the teams are has me now. Maybe I need to start paying attention. I can contribute to this show next time I come on here. It's amazing. I'm now looking forward to March Madness. And here's the hoping that we have a good tournament, but I'm pretty sure I'll be back on before that's over, though.
All right, man. Well, you have a great night, and we look forward to talking to you. And let's see what moves the Falcons are going to make.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.
All right. Have a great one. Mr. Scott, your thoughts on that same field there? What do you think? Do you think that we should amend? That the NFL is going to amend the rule, or do you think that like everybody says, the rules there for everybody to use, right?
Yeah, that. I mean, I played high school football. I mean, I wasn't great or anything. I mean, we were state champions, so we had a decent team. And this thing about pushing people, you couldn't do that. I mean, it's just like now I watch basketball. The beard, 6 steps, 1 dribble, if any dribbles. I mean, so.
It's called a Euro step.
Well, that's it's not some foolishness like that. It's a travel. But, so the pushing, what I was actually.
I don't even know if you could call it traveling. Traveling was a one. That was a one step. Well, I mean, that nowadays they're packing their suitcases. I mean, it's almost a want to get away trip, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine a guy that is smaller in stature than 7'4" taking 2 steps to the basket from the foul line. I mean, I'm just saying. Maybe.
I know. But...
You got to have some large feet. Yeah, some very large feet. What's your thought? Getting back to football here, Mr. Scott.
But yeah, that
the
pushing
rule is there for
again.
everybody.
That was never. Like I said, I was at a Viking game and I sat right in the front row watching the Bears. And there was a play on about the 9-yard line where the offensive line just pushed the defensive line into the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, and I sat there and looked at it up close. And this is all that was going on. They were just pushing them into the end zone. So and they allowed it, called it a touchdown. But I didn't think that was a legal move to do that. Maybe Don knows. He's officiated. Don, you've officiated, haven't you?
No. I've never officiated football. The closest thing is I upped a CYO baseball game a few years ago, but that's about it. But yes, but that push thing, if you remember, I think it was 2005, USC versus Notre Dame. Y'all remember that?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think
it's been a while. It's been around a while.
Yeah, because like you said, in 2005, and I'm thinking that the NFL adopted this in 2002. I want to say, but I might be wrong.
You can push, but you can't pull.
Right. It was called it was called aiding the runner. Right. Can you imagine if they could have pushed Earl Campbell through some hole? I'm just thinking. Yeah, showing my.
So that has been in the rule book that you can do that.
Since I believe it's since 2002. I might be wrong, but you can look it up afterwards.
What I can see them doing is maybe. Like compromising, like you can push, but only one player. You can't have like 3 of them pushing in. Something like that.
What was you put 2 linemen in the backfield, one lined up in the two back, both lined up in the back position, and you just had them push Jalen Hurts or whoever the quarterback is across. I'm going to throw you a curveball here because we got the 10 men, formerly known as the Titans, and their GM says he's excited about moving ahead with Ryan Tannehill. Now, I'm looking, around the landscape here, and I mean, of course, we know Mariota's been let go. Carson Wentz is being gone, but Don, do you think the Titans are really excited about starting Ryan Tannehill another year?
Ryan Tannehill, he's been a very serviceable quarterback. He's one of those guys who he's not elite, but he's probably next level. He's played that way, but Father Time's undefeated, and so he's getting that kind of long in the tooth. He's not. I mean, there are older quarterbacks, but as far as his time in the NFL, he's been there for a while. And I'm a big Tannehill fan. He was a great athlete in high school and college. People don't realize this. He actually played wide receiver for 2 years at A&M before he moved to quarterback. And so he's just one of those good athletes. But my God, he's been there for a while, and he's had his little nagging injuries. I can see him starting this year, but he may not finish. And I think any team in that situation with a quarterback who is getting up in years, they have to start looking at their options. And so when they say that, we're excited, I highly doubt that they're excited. I mean,
what's your thoughts on Tannehill there, Mr. Scott?
Well, I agree. I mean, he's had his moments. he's got out there. He kind of reminds me kind of like a Josh McCown guy that kind of comes out and can really do good for us, a short period of time, a short burst of time. But no, I can't see that they're throwing the franchise behind him. I mean, so yeah, that's a strange move. That's a very strange move. But no, I don't see Tannehill as a franchise quarterback anymore. I mean, I really don't.
Okay, Mr. Scott. I'm gonna make it hard for you because you just talked about Ryan Tannehill. Couldn't we substitute Kirk Cousins for the same question?
Well, that question is that's out of bounds. Really, that's an out of bounds question.
Now wait a minute. Now, hold it, Mr. Scott. I have to put up with having
Kirk Cousins is under contract. He threw for over almost 5,000 yards. He was Pro Bowl, whatever that means now, quarterback. So, yeah, he'll be here for another year. So.
Oh, okay. So only another year. Will Father Time push Cousins out too, Mr. Scott?
Well, I think the money could push him out. I mean, boy, he has really got papered up since he's really got the bag, as they say. He's got the bag. So that's about the only thing I think that they, I don't see him taking any kind of pay cuts. I don't think that's in his, or whatever they try to do, make you take less money. So I think this year could be it for him at the Vikings anyway.
Do you see a successor, or do you think the Vikings will be looking for one in the draft?
Oh yeah, they got to start looking for somebody. They don't have anybody at all.
Okay.
I mean, Cousins plays every play. He's played every play. They don't even use the other people. So.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, who is your backup quarterback? I don't even know.
I can't remember. It was Sean Mannion for a while, and then it was. I can't think of who the new guy is. They got him from. Oh, where'd he come? Was it San Francisco or something? I can't remember. But he never got in the field. So.
Mr. Scott, the Dolphins have yet to make the call on Tua's fifth-year option. Do you think Tua is going to be with the Dolphins next year?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I don't think they have much more of a option. And he's another one. He's had moments. He's had some injuries. Left-handed. That seems to be kind of a hindrance for whatever reason. But yeah, I think he'll be there.
Funny you mentioned the left-handed part, because that's not something. Even though we have talked about it, that is kind of the last thing that usually you hear a lot of things about Tua, except for the left-handed part. Mr. Hayes, do you think that Tua will be get his option picked up by the Dolphins?
That's the big $1 million question. I'm a big Tua fan also, but with the situation there at the Dolphins, I'm not sure if he should maybe try to land somewhere else. All that controversy about the head injury and all that. So
yeah,
I would, if you were a student, I'd say take a gap year and come, get fixed. But I think he would be a good, replacement for someone who needed a quarterback, like maybe, the Saints or something like that. But with all the situation in Miami, I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are looking for a quarterback, right?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, it's not like there's not a lot of spots out there, But then, Tua, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy G, you got a few candidates out there. So we'll see. Don, is it time for the Cowboys to move on from Dak?
Yes.
And do you think that OBJ will be wearing a star this coming season?
I don't know about that. That's possible, but yeah, a Dak. Yeah, it's time. And I've been on the Dak wagon as far as I can go. He's a classy guy. He's a good human being, but Cowboys are not going to. Again, he's not an elite quarterback. He's in that same. I put him in the same category as Tannehill. He'll win you some games. He'll lose you some games. I mean, he's just not. He's not what the Cowboys need. But the Cowboys, they're also going to be, I think, in search of a running back. So hopefully they can replace that backfield.
Do you think that speaking of OG Beckham, is Tony Pollard going to be wearing a Cowboys uniform next year, Mr. Don?
I don't know that I would love to have Pollard back, but he had that injury, and so I don't know. I mean, it depends on how his rehab goes, and sometimes we've seen running backs come back even better after injuries, believe it or not. But I just hope he's one of them because he clearly outplayed Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, he has for the last 2 seasons. They just
3 seasons. I'd go back 3 seasons.
Yeah. And then you give of course the guy that you're paying the most, you give him the ball when you're down closer to the goal line. So okay. What's your thoughts on the Cowboys there, Mr. Scott? You kind of offered an early opinion there when you were talking about that division, but is it time for the Cowboys to move on from Dak?
Boy, I suppose, I have a buddy down in Houston who has just never been a Dak fan. I mean, he has just railed on him from day one. And I said, he's looking good. He stay healthy, but it's become kind of a mediocre type thing now. And so he's getting a lot of money. How do you dump those kind of contracts? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can release a guy like that or if they would. His time there just seems like people have seen enough. I mean, they've seen enough at this point. And I think that something has to give, but how it gives, I have no thoughts on that. Can you trade him? Can you release him? Can you buy out his contract? I don't know how that would happen. So I think all that kind of comes into play too.
Do you think Odell Beckham Jr. will be wearing a star next season?
Well, I'm at a point now. These head case people, what's the point? I mean, go down to Alabama, you can find you a good receiver. I mean, they have 3 or 4 number 1 receivers every year, so you can find you a receiver. So no, they.
Hey, well, let's talk about your division there, Mr. Scott. Should the Bears move off Justin Fields for a new quarterback with the first-round pick, or should they trade that first-round pick? What's your thoughts on the Bears?
Boy, that's a real good question here. It seems like there's several good quarterbacks out there. And I wouldn't be averse, even though you have one, to take one of these young guys. But we're not worried about the Bears, though. The Bears, the division, Vikings win the division. I mean, that's kind of like, I don't see any of the other teams really. Green Bay, I don't know what they're going to do with their head case. I mean, he's still kind of gallivanting around. We don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about him in a minute.
So, but the Bears, I think that I just don't know if they believe in the quarterback they have. If they do, then I guess they draft to build a team. I just don't know if they do. I don't have a feel for
Don, maybe I have a different feel here, because my proposal would be this. We talked to Reggie already. Now the Falcons are in the number 8 spot. So my proposal would be to trade the first round pick to a team like Houston or Indianapolis, where you could get some draft picks and still stay within the top 10. And then possibly looking at the board in the number 8 spot, you can trade that spot to Atlanta and build up not only your offensive line, but certainly that poor wide receiving core that you have for the Bears. Don, what's your thoughts?
That's not a bad proposition, actually. I think, when you have the 8 spot in draft, any top 10 spot, or I should say 5 through 10, that's a pretty good position to be in, I believe. And so if they can make it happen, why not? Go for
it. Do you think that Justin Fields is a not permanent answer, but at least as Bill would call him, maybe a glue guy until you can get? I mean, next year's draft seems to be much more plentiful when it comes to the quarterback position than this year's draft.
I think Justin Fields, there might be some people, ready to write him off already, but I think he's gonna stick around the league for a while. He may not become elite, but I like him as a player. I think he's not a loafer, that's for sure. But I would like to see people put a little more faith in him.
And you still got him under a rookie contract. Yeah. So, Mr. Scott brought up a very good point there. It seems that Aaron couldn't take 4 days in the dark. He was gone after 2. And even after he came out, he still hasn't seen the light quite yet. He says he doesn't want to be a disruption, but he hasn't made a decision. But I don't see Aaron walking away from $60 million. Now, is it time for the front office to draw a line in the sand, Don?
You know what? Green Bay, if Green Bay keeps hanging on to Aaron Rodgers, they get whatever they deserve, because they know that he's a weirdo. He's talented, yeah, but I mean,
he's 39, right?
Yeah. He's pushing 40, and it's always the what's that song, Janet Jackson? What have you done for me lately? I mean, sometimes it's time to start cutting, and I think with the roster that Green Bay has, I mean, they can put together a pretty good team. You just you just find a quarterback they believe in, and I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is that guy anymore. I mean, like I said, he's out there smoking whatever and eating whatever, and he looks like the homeless guy down the street sometimes, and it's just I saw him in the interview with Joe Rogan. I watched Joe Rogan quite a bit, and I'm like, my God, this guy was like, so awesome back in the day, but he's just a weirdo. I don't, the way he treats his family, the way he talks about his teammates, the choice of girlfriends. It's like,
Don, we in today's PC we call that eccentric, don't we?
well, in my day we just call it being a weird ass, eccentric, whatever.
Oh man! All right, guys. Let's run through this quick list here. I have some AFC U-Haul candidates, meaning that their current team, these guys will be coming free agents next season. And you tell me whether or not you think they will stay with their current team or whether they will move on or whether the team will move on from them. Uh, and we'll start, of course, with the Patriots and offensive tackle Isaiah Wynn. Will he be in the Patriots uniform next year, or will we see him somewhere else? Don.
I think he stays.
Running back Devin Singletary for the Bills. Don.
I think he stays also.
Mr. Scott, your thoughts on Isaiah Wynn? Stay or go?
Yeah, I think I'll go with both of those. I think they stay with their teams. Same with Singletary.
What about Jets running back James Robinson, Mr. Scott?
I'd say no on that.
Tight end Mike Gesicki, will he be in a Dolphin uniform next year? Mr.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Don, what do you think about Mr. Robinson? Will he be a Jet next year?
I think Robinson will probably be, when draft comes out, I think he'll be one of those that gets offered up as a trade. Quite possibly, I think Gesicki, when it's all said and done, I think he stays with the Dolphins.
Okay. The Clowns, Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end. What do you think, Don?
I think he stays. He still got some good years in him. It depends on if he's offered. I don't know what he'll be offered by who, but I think he's a good fit for the Browns.
Remember, the Bills. We don't know how what's his name is going to come back for the Bills, so there could be some movement there, especially if you get Clowney on the cheap. What about the Radbirds safety Chuck Clark, Don?
I think he stays.
Mr. Scott, Jadeveon Clowney, will he be in a Browns uniform next year?
I think he might be making a lot of money, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he makes a decent amount. Pretty good.
And I think if he's, they gave so much money to the man I call Red Dog. No, I don't think he'll take less money. He still has a name. He can go somewhere he's effective.
What about Chuck Clark, safety for the Ratbirds?
Yeah, I think he'll stay.
My favorite corner, and I say that very sarcastically, but the Bungles cornerback Eli Apple, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I think he stays.
The Bungles stand with the Bungles. Running back Joe Mixon. Will he be in the Bengals uniform next year?
Boy, they really just have no respect for running backs. So I'll say no.
Don, what do you think about Eli Apple? Will he be in the Bengals uniform next year? Considering he played a good game this year, but usually a lot of teams target Eli Apple just because of I think what he overplays his position and has too much confidence, because he doesn't have that step that he used to have, and he thinks that he still does. But what do you think? Will Eli Apple still be a Bengal?
For next season, I believe so. After next season, I don't. I don't know. I don't know what the tea leaves will say, but I think he'll stay one more year, one more season.
And what about Joe Mixon?
Joe Mixon is the same boat with Robinson. There's going to be some teams looking for running backs, and I think a change of getting out of Cincinnati would probably be a good thing for him. So I think he leaves probably.
Inside linebacker Devin Bush with the Steelers. Don?
I think he stays, and Pittsburgh fans better hope he does stay.
I'm trying to think of the wide receiver. Deontay Johnson. Do you think he's going to go or he's going to stay, even though he's still under a rookie contract?
I think he stays.
Mr. Scott, inside linebacker Devin Bush.
Yeah, I think he'll stay with your Steelers.
Deontay Johnson.
That one I'm going to pass. I don't know enough about him.
Okay. Okay. Then let's talk about your friend down there in Houston. Is Brandon Cook staying with the Texans?
I think so. He's one of the few guys that the Texans probably need. So I think he stays.
What about the Ponies, formerly known as the Colts? Kenny Moore II, cornerback. Does he stay or does he go?
I think he'll stay.
Mr. Scott, Brandon Cooks for the Texans.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's got something for them.
And cornerback Kenny Moore II for the Colts.
These cornerbacks, they're always picking a lot of them in the draft. I think he could be moved.
Staying on quarterbacks, the Jaguars, Shaquille Griffin. He's due for free agency and also has that injury history.
I'd say he's definitely a candidate to be moved.
The Titans cornerback Caleb Farley, Mr. Scott, is he going to be a Titan or will he be moved?
I think he was a starter, so yeah, I think he'll stick.
Okay, Don, cornerback Shaquille Griffin for the Jags.
I think he'll stay.
The Titans cornerback Caleb Farley.
This one I'm not too sure about. I'm kind of leaning that he stays. So it's going to depend on what they see the draft because I know that they were looking for help in that backfield.
Don, the Colts, now known as the Geldings, guard Dalton Risner. Does he stay?
I think so.
And the Raiders defensive end, Celine Farrell. Does he stay or does he go?
The Raiders are making changes. I personally would keep him, but he's another guy that I think that might be traded away for some other positions. So I'm going to say he goes.
Let's see. Mr. Scott, what do you think? The Colts guard Dalton Risner. Is he going to stay or is he going to go?
Yeah, with the Colts, boy, who knows? I'd say that he stays because he started.
And what about the Raiders defensive end, Celine Farrell?
I don't know much about him. I'd say he goes.
Okay. And staying with you, Mr. Scott, the Chargers, uh, their safety, Nasir Adderley, injuries, and we've
Yeah,
seen him
Adderley.
kind of
Is he
take
related?
his.
Is he related to Herb Adderley?
I believe they're on the same family tree. I don't want to say how close they are, but I believe there's a distant
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah. I think he should stay. Yeah.
And Kansas City Chief running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh God, they get rid of the backs, guy. They have McKinnon. They have. I say he goes.
Uh, Don, the Chargers, Nasir Adderley.
What's that?
The, the Chargers,
Yeah,
safety,
I think he
Adderley.
stays. Yeah, he stays.
And what about Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Uh, that's other iffy. Like I said, I think there's a bunch of running backs in the mix be moved around. So just for shits and grins, I think he'll be somewhere else next year.
Okay, well, hey, it was good talking with everyone this evening. We got a little preview here of March Madness. It'll be a couple weeks before they start announcing the brackets and tournaments and all that. So we'll start with you, Mr. Scott. Oh no, Mr. Scott first. I have to kind of get down on you
Oh,
because
can't believe it.
last week there was a great Showtime preview that was once again uh, featured Minneapolis. You had another championship fight there at the arena, and Showtime featured a article. Well, it was actually a Showtime documentary that was done in Indianapolis. It was a three-part series called The Boys in Blue, and it was about North High School in Minneapolis and how the different men of the community, as well as the policemen that were the coaches that were reaching out and mentoring these young men in North High School, which I understand is part of that territory uh, around Minneapolis where there has been an upsurge in crime. But it shows how close these men, especially the policemen and the adults in the community, have pulled together to make sure that this particular high school, or at least this particular area, is kind of uh, a truth zone during high school football season. And I believe I sent you a copy of it, and as well as Miss Sims, because it shows that there really are adults and members of the community that are actually pulling together to help try to save these kids. And I think that those are the things that we should show more of when we show Minneapolis rather than what's happening around George Floyd or anyone else, because I think that we should concentrate on the youth. But I sent you a copy, and uh, I believe you would be more familiar with that particular area. But I thought it was a very good documentary. It shows that the adults are reaching out to the kids, and in a lot of cases, the only thing that these kids want is just someone to just care, someone to just have faith in them. I commend you and your city and the way that it is bouncing back through the use of sports and athletics within the city.
Yeah, I saw the documentary. As a matter of fact, the coach Adams, the policeman, he's now the security for the Minnesota Twins. But his dad is the commander, Charles Sr. is the commander of Minneapolis Police. And I do Black History programs every year at the downtown library here, the big library. And I had Commander Adams as my guest after the Philando Castile murder. And basically, he came in and told the audience, how to be safe during a police stop. I mean, it was just a riveting program. He came in and said, I'm the commander of Minneapolis Police, and I've been stopped. And I have my gun on me. And I keep my hand on the wheel. I answer the questions, and then I go on about my business. And so he came and really gave a real. So, yeah, I'm very familiar with. My brother taught and coached baseball at North High School after he graduated from Alabama State, where he was a 4-year starter in baseball. So, yeah, I'm familiar with what goes on here in my city. 70-some years. But, yeah, it was a good program. I enjoyed watching it. But there's, a lot of things that still need to be done.
Yes, but the thing is that we have to start somewhere. And I thought, when I was going through that documentary about the kids at North High School, it kind of brought me back to the days when I was in high school, and that was, athletics was one of your way outs. Even if it wasn't your end goal, you at least wanted to get to a D2 or a D3 school where you could get your education for free. Like I said, I thought it was very riveting, especially the part that the police played in it. As you know, I'm one of those reform the police guys, but I also recognize leadership within the community, and these kids respected their mentors, and I think that's the key: respect more than anything else. So I do commend your city and the way that you're pulling yourself up from your bootstraps. We need out here in California, we need a lot of cities to take your type of initiative, and not just here in California, but all over the country. There are a lot of cities where we are misrepresented, and we need to take a bigger step forward as mentors for our youth. So I do commend your city, and contrary to your popular belief, I do not. It's not a negative thing as far as Minneapolis. It's just that Minneapolis just happens to be, as they say, low hanging fruit, and you can use them as an example, but slowly but surely, the tide has been turning. Don, Texas is another place where we have seen many programs sprout up for the youth, as far as keeping youth off the streets. A lot of cities are using boxing and sports, and uh, it seems that sports have become the rallying cry because it expands race, creed, and color. And
Right.
uh, I have found sport to work uh, in a positive way through a lot of adversity, whether it was when I was incarcerated or even when I served my country. A lot of times, those things were the things that you could go to in order to get rid of some of the anxiety and some of the problems that you faced as a youth. Don, as a mentor and uh, a person that helps shape the lives of these young people as a teacher, what strides have you seen in your state?
Well, I really can't. Of course, Texas is a pretty big state there, James. So I can't speak what goes on in Austin or in Dallas or Houston, but I know San Antonio. Every coach I worked with, we always tell our kids, and this goes all the way through middle school, be involved in something. I don't care if it's athletics. It could be band. It could be choir. It could be, you could be like young chefs. We have that program at my school, culinary. I mean, get involved in something because the more things that kids are involved in, the less time they have to focus on the negative stuff. It's good to have a 2-parent home, but a lot of kids don't have 2-parent homes. And so, coaches and teachers, we sometimes have to step up. I mean, as a teacher, I played the role of parent. I played the role of judge. I played the role of counselor. I play I wear a lot of hats. I don't just teach, No, maybe 20 years ago I did, but it was a different time and age. But I'm a big proponent of keeping kids involved in activities that they're good in. You might have a kid who just isn't good at football, but you know what? He has endurance. Put in cross country. I mean, we had a kid that played for me about 6-7 years ago. He ended up qualifying for state in cross country. He ran a great 2 miles. So there's always a little niche that kids can do. They just have to learn how to find that thing that they're good at, and then we need to encourage and cultivate that, and hopefully that keeps them from getting bored and doing stupid shit.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like they say, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. I'm kind of proof of that. So, but hey, as always, glad talking with you and Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, did you have any events coming up this month?
Well, there's a gallery at a church, Calvary Baptist, and all of my books and pictures are at the church on display for the whole month. So I've been attending service there. And people are coming in, buying books and looking at the historical things that we've done on the city of Minneapolis, Black communities. So that's pretty much, we're working on a documentary now where we've got a grant to do a documentary on the work that we're doing. And I'm hopefully get a variety of the people I know. Like my brother played baseball and actually he was a baseball coach at North High School and Central High School before it closed. But he also played on a junior college team that was coached by a guy named Steve Winfield, who's Dave Winfield's brother. And so they became just like best friends, and they played on American Legion teams together. And so now Steve is around here too. He's a sheriff in Ramsey County. And so we're hoping to get him, some people like him in our documentary. So that is something that we've got to finish by April. So I'll be working on that. Other than that, just, waiting for this snow to go away, man. This has been terrible, man. I'm telling you, man, this is good. Lord, I've never shoveled this. I'm about through with this stuff. I'm coming to Atlanta in a couple of weeks, so I've got to get out of here.
Hey, I don't rub salt in the wound, but today it was 90 degrees in San Antonio. 90 degrees.
It's not that warm here in California. Believe me,
And a week ago, it was 55.
Yeah, I saw it snowing in Los Angeles, I thought.
Well, it might be snowing up around the mountains and that here. Right now, we're in the 40s to 55 degree mark. It's like I said, when you get out here and you become California acclimated, you get California cold. So at 40.
If it's 45, 50, I'm out here barbecuing. Okay, I'm barbecuing. It's 45, 50.
Yes, well, the same thing in Pittsburgh. When I lived in Pittsburgh, I knew it was going to snow the first day of spring. So, but that weekend, yeah, you can barbecue. But that's the way things go. But hey, guys, as always, good talking sports with you. Enjoy it. Hopefully, as I was saying, earlier, our thoughts and prayers go out to our brother Demetrius. Uh, I haven't heard much on the situation without trying to be intrusive in his family. So our thoughts and prayers just go out to Demetrius, and we wish him and his family well in their struggles. So with that, gentlemen, I bid you farewell, and I will see you all next week. Right here on
Timberwolves will make the playoffs. Timberwolves will make the playoffs. So
Timberwolves will make the playoffs. Okay, will they face the Lakers in the first round?
Lakers are done. You can stick a fork in.
Stick a fork in. Don, is San Antonio getting the first draft pick?
It's possible.
You have a great night, Don. We'll talk next week. Yeah. Well, thank everyone for watching. We enjoy our little time with you, and we look forward to talking to everyone right here again next week on the Sports Crib. Have a great night, everyone. See you next week.